Let me tell you about one of the most bizarre yet innovating game you would ever see. It was so innovative that the world was just not ready for it. I'm Arcadenaut here, and today I will be talking about the bouncer for this week's retrospective video. A game that was too cinematic, too banger for a video game in early 2000s. Imagine a world where neon-lit streets meet 3D brawls, a story that unfolds with the drama of a soap opera and the action of a blockbuster movie. The Bouncer is not just any old beat 'em up, this is Squaresoft flexing its muscles on the brand new PlayStation 2, delivering a game that's part martial arts, part RPG, and all attitude. Today we are diving into one of the roughest hidden gems that you can ever see, a game that dared to be different in an era brimming with possibilities. The gaming world was buzzing with excitement over the PlayStation 2 in year 2000. This was the era of bold experiments and graphical leaps, and the Bouncer was one of those experiments. At first glance, the Bouncer seemed like a standard beat-em-up game, but it was anything but that. It was a blend of cinema and gaming, a mix that was still rare at the time, that was experimented by the series like Metal Gear Solid by then. Although the core gameplay of the Bouncer seems like classic beat-em-up game, it was robbed heavily with high-cost CGI cutscenes to deliver its world and the characters. Its characters were designed by Tetsuya Nomura, who was by then worked on Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, Parasite Eve and Chrono Trigger. And its gameplay design was made none other than the Dream Factory and the man who led the charge, Seiichi Ishii. If you wonder who Seiichi Ishii is, let's say he was the designer behind Virtua Fighter and the director of Tekken 1 and Tekken 2. The Bouncer already seems like a promising and unique experience, right? Well, it is. For its time at least, but can't say it aged really well over the years. Let's get to its character first and the gameplay before we dig into its roots and the development further. You get to control one of the three bouncers, Sion Barzat, Walt Kruger and Ko Leifo, each with their unique fighting styles, attributes and special moves. The combat system is quite straightforward, yet engaging. You get to fight alongside with other two bouncers in a stage, with a combination of basic attacks, special moves, as each stage takes roughly between 30 seconds to 1 minute. Yeah, you heard me right. If you just skip the cutscenes and just do the beat 'em up sequences, and even maybe rush your way, you can quickly complete the Bouncer around 30 minutes to 1 hour, I think. Or maybe even less? I don't know. I literally played the main story around 4 to 5 times already to record the footage for this retrospective, and I completely lost the track. The Bouncer had depth to its combat mechanics and gameplay, however it also had one of the worst physics engine that a beat-em-up game could ever had. The ragdoll physics. It was also the main source of criticism back then, and I still think it's so. The way the characters react to hits feel unnatural, totally breaking the whole tension and the fun you're having during the short beat-em-up sequences. Although I get what they try to achieve here, it was a clear sign of the game's ambitious reach that is executed quite poorly. Let's talk about our three talented bouncers next, starting with Sion, the original, the first implementation of Sora from Kingdom Hearts. The resemblance is quite uncanny. Sion Barzad, with his swift and agile moves, is the poster boy and the main protagonist for the game. His combat style is balanced, making him a great pick for beginners or those who preferred a more straightforward approach. His story is one of loyalty and love, driven by the kidnappings of his close friend and love interest, Dominique. The Bouncer begins with the abduction of Sion's friend Dominique, setting our three bouncers on a quest to fight against the mega corporation, the Mikado Group. This Mikado Group is basically like Shinra of Final Fantasy VII, but anyways, the narrative takes the players through various locations in and around the city of Edge, as our three bouncers are trying to reach Mikado HQ, and this mega corporation, led by enigmatic dragon Mikado, as the primary antagonist with motives that intertwine with each of our heroes' past. And as I mentioned before, the story of the Bouncer is like an action blockbuster movie mixed with soap opera, so if I were you, I wouldn't expect much from the story of the Bouncer. But anyways, let's get the other remaining two bouncers first. Walt Kruger, on the other hand, is the powerhouse, a behemoth in combat, literally feels like Zangief of the group. And the remaining character Ko Leifo is the speedster with acrobatic moves that made him a joy to control for those who loved a more dynamic, high-flying style of combat. These three bouncers work at the bar Fate, and suddenly, out of the blue, Mikado Group attacks the bar, kidnaps Dominique, and the story starts. What really set the bouncer apart from the games of its era and also from other beat-em-up titles was its RPG elements. You watch a CG cutscene that are visually way ahead of its time, then the bouncer lets you choose which character you want to play. You don't get to choose a character at the start of your journey and just play with that character, but you get to choose who you want to play as for each and every level. Characters earn experience points from fights or whenever they land a last hit to an enemy, and after you finish a 10, 20 or 30-second stage, you can spend your experience points to enhance your attributes or maybe learn new moves. This last hit mechanic is another design fault, I believe. Let's say you played as Volt, leveled up his strength to maximum and started a new game plus as Sion or Ko and want to see their side of the journey. Well, Volt here can literally steal your last hits and prevent you from earning normal enemy or even that sweet boss fight experience. Although you get to receive experience points by clearing that stage, this last hit mechanic is another unnecessary game design in my opinion. And on the other hand, there are some really minor changes to story depending on who you play as, so that means I get to play the same experience over and over again just to make a video for you guys out there. However, a big however here, the use of CG cinematic cutscenes was really revolutionary at the time. They weren't just there for show, the bouncer really tried to amaze its audience with visuals that are way ahead of its time with cinematic narrative. It showcased what PlayStation 2 could do, and I think they've tried to prove the hardware of PlayStation 2, although I think I would rather have more solid beat 'em up gameplay with less CGI and the combat without ragdoll physics. Tetsuya Nomura's design gave the game a distinctive look. There is a blend of realism and stylized fantasy, but it couldn't help the bouncer to be more than just a rough hidden gem and a cult classic. And I believe, personally, 3-player coach co-op with a deeper gameplay mechanics, longer and more engaging levels could have made the bouncer a really solid experience. Or maybe just turning the bouncer into like a Tekken-like fighting game could have earned Squaresoft a big fighting game IP. And if I were to go back to story without giving away too much, the plot thickens with every step you take in the shoes of Sion, Volt or Ko. Each character's narrative path offers a different lens through which the story unfolds, adding layers to the overall narrative. As I mentioned before, Sion's story is driven by his connection to Dominique, but on the other hand, Volt's past connection to Mikado Group and Ko's real objective unravels if you get to play as these characters. But whether to care about these characters' background story or their motive is really up to you. Sometimes I really wonder how much they expect us to care about the narrative or the characters that roughly takes around 1 hour and so. However, keep in mind that the bouncer came out 7 months before Final Fantasy X and 2 years before the first Kingdom Hearts, and I believe this CG fest of a beat-em up title helped Squaresoft to implement better CGs to their mainline with big budget titles. But on the other hand, it also condemned Dream Factory. And to be honest, I plan to cover more of Dream Factory's titles in the future, so if there is any title that you wish to see on the channel that is made by Dream Factory, be sure to share that by the comments below. And if I were to just put it simply, the bouncer differed in its focus on beat-em up gameplay, a genre that was more commonly associated with arcades and older consoles, and this approach of cinematic narrative and beat-em up style made the game something of a cult classic among its RPG and adventure-focused peers. While the bouncer was praised for its graphics and ambitious narrative, its gameplay was often seen as lacking in depth compared to the more polished experiences offered by other titles of the time. In comparison to other beat-em-ups of the time, the bouncer was more ambitious, both in scope and storytelling, However, this ambition didn't mean that it could compete with more focused, gameplay-driven titles in its genre. The urban setting combined with a somewhat futuristic vibe and Tetsuya Nomura's unique character designs gave the bouncer a unique look that set it apart from other games of its era. But at the end, the bouncer is a rough, hidden gem covered in nostalgia. Definitely would recommend it if you just want to have a movie-like experience with your friends or just really curious. And the folks out there just like me who played this game when they were kids, they have already found their ways of playing bouncer once again, I think. And as always, thank you for watching today's video. Which retro classic, hidden gem or Dream Factory title you would like to see on the channel next? Don't forget to join my Discord channel and to follow me on Twitter. Any humble support through Patreon and YouTube join are really appreciated. I will see you soon. Merry Christmas and stay tuned.